Let's go. We are live. All right, my fellow Rainmakers, we are live here today. And we are talking about how to become a marketing genius, not just in 2026, but moving forward. Now, part of me doing this video live, and if you're not watching it live, I'll just give you a hint that this was a live streamed video and it's incredibly analog. This entire thing is going to just be posted off. So if you don't like big ideas, if using your brain and having to think about complex things without flying animations all over the screen isn't for you, then just skip this video, save yourself the time. But if you are in it for the long haul and deeper, bigger thoughts, this video is for you. That being said, anyone who does come in live, I'll answer any questions. But this video, as it is titled, is all about how to become a marketing genius. And I think by far the easiest way to do this in 2026, and like I said, moving forward into the future, is thinking about things through the lens of sobriety. That's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about why sobriety is the right lens, I think, to think things through, and then how people are going to use it to win in the future. But first and foremost, I want to just discuss, like, what do I even mean by sobriety? I'm not talking about being an alcoholic or not being an alcoholic, being a drug addict or not being a drug addict. I'm just talking about two extreme ends of the spectrum. Nassim Taleb, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, has this great barbell theory where essentially he basically describes two extremes. You could think of this as like investing, I think is a great way to think about it. And if you have two extremes to investing, you have either extremely risky investor or you have safe investor that's all about, like, I put my money into a 30-year ETF, I save $100 a paycheck and put it there and I never touch it and I never do anything stupid. Both of these people have the chance for outsized returns, if you can believe it or not. Both ends of the spectrum allow you to actually ultimately have the greatest shot at a return or success. Now, one would say that the very risky side, has just the opportunity to kill themselves or take themselves out of the game. And while that is true, actually every single person on the barbell is susceptible to that thing because of black swan events or things that just go bad in our lives that we can't control. So I know that may or not be helpful, but that's how I'm thinking about sobriety in this case. So you can either think of sobriety as, or I want you to think of sobriety in this case as one end of the spectrum that's all about reality. It's all about analog. It's all about touch, feel, etc. It's doing a live stream to all a couple hundred of your YouTube subscribers and not a single one watching them, because you want to get across the point that, with all the crazy amounts of editing and quality and volume and all this nonsense these days, that you're still real. AKA, that's why I'm making this video. And then the other end of the spectrum, that's like Mr. Beast, right? So if you want to watch like a Mr. Beast marketing video, this is not it. This is the much more sober version. Now, why I think marketing geniuses are thinking through this lens is because part of being a marketing genius is just understanding the world around you. And if you understand the world around you in 2026 in particular, you will notice that we are living in an extremely unsober world, which is the opportunity for sobriety to be popular. I'll get to that. But let me give you a couple examples. I'm a guy, so this is going to be me mansplaining to you why culture right now looks very unsober. But one of the strange things about being a guy right now is that you can't actually go use a urinal anyway, or you can't go use a urinal anywhere right now as a guy and not find hundreds of Zins just filling up the little like pipe. Not hundreds, it's an exaggeration, but one or two or three. They're just everywhere. Heck, if you just walk around the streets, there's just nicotine packages everywhere. And the reason for that is because we've had extreme unsober like marketing towards people looking for energy products, right? So if you go in your algorithm and you are looking for a energy product of some sort, maybe you want to work harder or perform better, you end up getting served these nicotine pouches or hundreds of them. So it's just ridiculous. And so our algorithms are now all forcing us into a lack of unsobriety, a form of cultural drunkenness, if you will. And it's not just nicotine pouches and urinals. Think of sports betting, for example. Think about how unsober an environment sports has become for marketing and taking people's money, young people's money. Gen Z now, I saw a study, 52% of all Gen Zers in the last year have taken investment money and moved it into sports betting. It's just completely unsober. Like, not only, like, that's stupid, it's irresponsible, it's you know, borderline insanity, but it's unsober. Like, you literally read that and you kind of go like, wow, that's not good. Even if you're the person that's moved some of that investment money you have to sports betting. And I won't get into like, all things in balance and whatnot. Like, yes, you can put a bet on a sports game one time now and then and be fine. But point is just there's so much lack of unsobriety, and it's even driving consumerism today. I'll give you a great example of this. If you think of High Rocks is the definition of gear acquisition syndrome, which is this sort of made up notion to describe the fact that people in 2026 would rather buy their hobbies than live their hobbies, if that makes sense. That's what gear acquisition syndrome is. And it is paramount to understanding how unsober of a culture we're living in, where you have people that would rather buy things to make them feel like they're doing something than actually going to do it. And I say this with High Rocks as an example because High Rocks is this big cultural fad right now that involves some CrossFit and whatnot. Also, shout out to the one person who joined the live just now. I saw that. Anyways, High Rocks has this list of products like weighted vest, like chains that you can like put around yourself and like do pull-ups. It's got all this gear list of how to train for a High Rocks thing. You know how many people have probably bought all that gear and never gone to a High Rocks event? I would love to see that data. I'd love to see the data. I'm sure it is immensely dumbfounding, and at the end of the day, just eye-opening, right? So you have consumerism now that's being driven by a lack of sobriety. It's just like, oh, I'll go buy the thing that I'll never use because it'll make me feel like I'm a High Rocks athlete or that I'm doing something actual, right? Now here's where the opportunity lies. I've talked to you about nicotine pouches, sports betting, High Rocks. You probably think the world's falling apart. It does look that way. But the reality is that we ended up in a very unsober space because that's how algorithms work. Okay, cool. I get that. How do I break through the noise as a business, as a marketer, right? What does the genius apply to this? What does the other side of that barbell look like in regards to being more sober? I think what that looks like, again, in 2026 and moving forward, is this analog movement amongst not just how you present yourself in the ads you make and the videos you make and the real live organic content that you're seeing here. It's also along the lines of like who you partner with to do that. Give you a really good example from maybe first just the media side of things. Kim Kardashian is by far probably one of the greatest marketers of all time. And she is now investing her hard-earned money to create a new TV show that's based around baseball moms. This is real. You can go look this up. Why is Kim Kardashian the showgirl, sexy glamour figure of like the 21st century, investing her money into something so rudimentary as like Utah baseball moms? Actually, Scottsdale, Arizona baseball moms. Why is she doing that? Because she understands that that's a super sober role that people can relate to, right? So the first and foremost is like how to be a sober marketer in 2026 is figure out how to present yourself in an organic way where you actually look real, or the thing that you have as a product is actually real. And I just saw somebody jump in the live stream, so drop any comments or questions you guys have. We are talking about sobriety in 2026, and I don't mean from like, again, the drug standpoint or whatever. I mean just simply coming back down to earth as a human being. So the second is through partnerships. How do you have a sober partnership? How's that real? And how do you grab attention with that? I'll give you a really, really dynamic example of this. Think of the NFL partnering with the Department of Transportation for their opening day kickoff campaign this year. One of the most unsober media entities on the planet partnering with one of the most sober, boring, yawned things on earth in a partnership. Both grab attention from both ends of the spectrum. and both at the end of the day probably tell this really cool, unique story that people from the Department of Transportation also just love football. And they go home and they act crazy and they act all unsober, even though during the day they have this very sobering, tough job. I could never do it. But that's my point, right? So there's a real opportunity to lean into sobriety in the way that we are marketing ourselves, our products these days. And I think ultimately to pull like the thread on it in terms of like how do you get to the ultimate form of like sobriety and some of these activations and marketing materials. I think I can only think about this through my lens, which is like the sports and media and entertainment space. But getting back to simple things like after every home run tonight or something, we're going to give you like a free taco that you can go redeem at concessions or cashback or something along those lines. There's a way to where this doesn't need to be constantly like, here's your $1,000 in free deposits to DraftKings or FanDuel, right? Like there are still things that humans need. They have primal instincts like food, drink, water, sleep, all that good stuff that we can be providing people in every single industry. It doesn't have to be just sports. That brings people back down to earth and back down to reality. So if you want to be a killer marketer in this new day and age, and if you want to maintain that edge in the future, if you want to be unbeatable by the algorithm, and being unbeatable by the algorithm means being sober, not being driven into these niche corners of the internet that are, inexplicitly, put there to sucker in people into consuming things, then show up more sober, show up more real. You still have to show up, right? The thing about the barbell that we talk about, this barbell effect, right? So you can have really sober marketing, really unsober marketing. If you don't market at all, if you're just in the middle, if you don't participate in that group, then you will lose, right? That's the only guaranteed way to lose, is to not do anything. Sit in the middle and just be swayed by one or the other, right? So you definitely want to be a producer, not a consumer. It's the easiest way to win as a marketer. But, beyond that, being sober is, I think, just going to be like the new hot thing. I think like being sober is being hot in 2026. That's also why you see an entire slew of Gen Zers that like don't drink, right? Because they're picking up on this. And trust me, there's groups on both ends of the spectrum. The sober group tends to be a little bit more quiet, a little bit more liberal, a little bit more annoying. But I think that it's going to get hot again, some way, somehow. And it is the counter to this addiction culture, this consumer culture that's just like, our algorithm again is going to pipe us into some corner of the internet, make us spend a bunch of money, make us crazy, make us unhappy. And that's just the end of it. So that is how, ladies and gentlemen, you can become a genius marketer. Again, I really hope this helps. I hope that, again, this brings new ideas to your world and your mind. If you suck through this video, I appreciate you. And just think of it in your own life, right? Just like go look at your algorithm. And honestly, that tells you everything that you're not sober about. Now, the flip side is everything that you see, there's people like you out there that see the exact same things. And they want something that's a little bit more sober. I'm a huge car guy. I love cars. I love homes. I love architecture. All I am fed every day is like giant mansions and Lambos. Okay, like that's not me. Like that's just not me, right? Like, yes, I love cars. I love architecture. I love homes. I love these sparkly assets, but I don't necessarily want to be like driven down that every day, right? There's offsprings of this that are a little bit more healthy, right? In terms of like maybe just maybe if you're like obsessed with that sort of thing and you want to market to those people, you put like a really analog video together of somebody doing like restoration on like an old castle or something. Like, I think that is just, again, the other end of this spectrum that is really going to captivate people and move us hopefully all in the right direction. And the last thing I'll say is that as a marketer, one of the things that you should be thinking about and why sobriety and thinking through the lens of sobriety as a marketer is so important is because it has real world implications, like I said, at the end of the day. Beyond the examples I gave, like too many Zins in the street or too many Gen Zers doing, sports betting, think of like our homeless crisis in the US right now. I think we would all agree that it doesn't matter what landed those people out there, no matter what happens out there to them or the things that they're doing or the reasons they're doing it for, it's a mess. But I think we'd all agree that that is bad for society. Like, people should not be living dirty. People should not be living in darkness. Like that is bad, right? That is a sober thought to think that that is bad. And that's why, again, I think sobriety is going to be hot again, because I think there's a lot of people that see all these different things and they're like, yeah, that can't be good. That doesn't feel good. That cannot possibly be good. So I challenge us all to think this way. I think this will be a powerful idea for a long time, and hopefully one that helps you a ton. If you like this content, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps this little organic niche community continue to grow. See you on the next one, guys. And appreciate everyone who jumped into this live stream. I think we had 3 people. That's huge. YouTube's algorithm's pushing it. Let's keep pushing it some more. Adios.